Welcome to College Football Roundup Week 1. I'm going to be trying to do this every single week for college football on this channel. Plus, it's going to be put up as a podcast on all podcasting platforms and Spotify and Apple. So, what we're going to be doing is I'm going to go quickly over just some notes from things I saw in the college football games this weekend. I'll get into some NFL draft watch kind of dudes that I think rose up and you need to keep your eye on for the draft. And we'll preview the next week's games. Now, one thing I do want to mention before we get into week 1 of college football, I'm not going to be talking too much about quarterbacks in this episode because I am going to be putting out a race for QB3 battle video where I'm going to highlight all of the dudes kind of competing for that QB3 in the draft spot, from Michael Penix to Bo Nix to Quinn Ewers to JJ McCarthy, Shadur Sanders. I'll be putting out more in depth on all the quarterbacks, so I'm not going to hit as much on them this week. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into week 1 of college football. Let's go ahead and start with the hot topic that everyone's talking about. Colorado is back, baby. CU is back. They go on to beat TCU at TCU in their first game of the Deion Sanders era. They played incredible. I think Shadur Sanders definitely put his name on the board. Like I said, when we talk about quarterbacks, I'll go more into depth in my quarterback video on him. But do that was very accurate. Put his name on the board, spreading the ball. And you can just see the talent on display from CU, from Dylan Edwards to Travis Hunter to all the dudes in the secondary, all the other receivers, Jimmy Horn coming over from USF. You just saw the talent. And Alton McCaskill, who's probably their best running back, wasn't even playing because he's still coming back from an ACL injury. So they just have so much skill position talent. And I think Travis Hunter might be the best player in the nation. I mean, this dude is an elite corner and an elite receiver. You just don't really see that anymore. And usually with these guys, it's kind of like, okay, Travis Hunter's having fun at receiver, but maybe he should stick to corner to make it to the league. Or, yeah, he's all right at corner, but, as a receiver, this dude needs, you talk to 10 different people, you'll have 5 say he should stick to receiver, 5 say he should stick to corner if he had to choose one. Like, this dude is elite at both. We'll see how many snaps he can keep up when it goes throughout the year. I don't think he's going to be able to play this many snaps every single game, and it might be something where, in the bigger games, he plays more snaps. In the not as big games, he might stick more to defense or stick more to receiver, just depending on the team that they're playing that week. But it'll be interesting to see his snap counts. That's one of the things that CU's definitely going to have to look at. But they definitely look legit. My only question about that CU team, being from Colorado and a CU Buffs fan, my only question is that run defense and the run offense. The running backs are really good, and I think they can kind of scheme around the run offense with a lot of quick passes, screens, get into some of these playmakers' hands like Dylan Edwards, Travis Hunter, Jimmy Horn. Some of those kind of guys kind of get it out quick and almost like extensions of the run game. And their O-line actually did really well in pass protection too. But running the ball, their run defense looks shaky though. Now TCU is really good at running the ball. They have good O-linemen. I mean, they made it to the national championship off of running the ball last year, and they have 2 really good backs there. So I do think that was a really good running team, but at the same time, I still do think there might be some issues in the run defense. But luckily, they play in the Pac-12 with a lot of quarterbacks that want to air it out, from Caleb Williams to Bo Nix and them. But we'll really see that run defense. I think Nebraska is going to try and run on them this week, and then they play CSU, and then once they get into Oregon with Bucky Irvin at running back, they're going to try and run the ball on them. So really, Oregon is when we're going to find that answer on whether or not that run defense is good. So they got 3 weeks to kind of figure it out before a legit running back comes in. TCU, I think, on the flip side of this, I think TCU is a good team, and I just think they weren't ready for CU. It's kind of hard to say TCU was bad or good. I just think they weren't ready. They have talent. I still think they can be a good team, but I just ultimately don't think they were ready for that game, and they might have. I don't want to say a team ever overlooked them, but there's a potential that they overlooked Colorado and some of the talent they brought in. So I need to see another week of TCU before I really decide if they're good or bad, because they still got talent on both sides of the ball, and I still think they're a good team. So we'll kind of see next week and in the future weeks where they rank. Moving on to my next point, we got Ohio State. I want to talk about this game, Ohio State versus Indiana. The talent's there for Ohio State. Their quarterback battle, McCord got named the starter. There's some talk, they kind of threw a little bit mixed quarterback. They said they're going to do it even more again, so I believe they'll be like Youngstown or something next week. They still kind of got to figure out that quarterback. I think this offense has the talent. There's no argument about this offense having the talent, from Harrison to Ibuka to Fleming to Travion Henderson to Carnell Tate to Mayan Williams. I mean, this team has the talent. Kate Stover's a solid tight end too. They just need to put it together, and I think it could take a couple weeks. But luckily for Ohio State, the beginning part of their schedule kind of allows them to have a couple weeks to put their offense together. But their offense definitely needs to take that step up if they want to be in that national title contention, which is what they believe they should be and what they have the talent to be. So we got to see. I think their defense played great. Their defense is stacked. That's one thing I've been harping on this offseason. The talent on their defense is nuts. So defense, I think, is fine. I saw defense looks good. But that offense is going to struggle. But I will want to see what they do because I do think Indiana has a sneaky, really good defense. Like, there's a potential in a couple weeks that we look back on this and say, yeah, Ohio State may have been a little bit rusty, but damn, that Indiana defense was a lot better than we were really giving them credit for because they got some dudes. I got two dudes I want to mention on my draft watch for Indiana once we get later, but like they played really well. And it'll be interesting to see if Ohio State kind of puts it together. And we look back at this game and it was like, okay, we saw the warning signs for Ohio State's offense, or are we going to look back at this game and say, wow, Indiana has a legit defense? So it's going to be one of the two. We'll see what it ends up leaning towards, but that's one thing I want to mention with Ohio State. A team with national title hopes, they definitely got to put some more stuff together on offense if they want to make that title because there's a lot of really good teams this year in college football. Next up, Tennessee. Quickly move over them. I'm not going to mention every game this week because like a lot of teams just handled business, like Oregon, Oklahoma. They blew those teams out. They should have blow them out, and they did. There's not really a lot to mention there. It's hard to say this dude looked really good when, I mean, they were kind of supposed to do that. So we're not going to harp on those. Tennessee's another one that kind of just handled business. But Tennessee, I thought they're going to put up a lot of points. You saw little struggles here and there, but like their running back room, Joe Milton with a cannon, the receivers are going to put it together. Their offense is built to put up a lot of points, and they're going to put up a lot of points. We'll see how their defense kind of fit. There was like that game in the end, or that Tennessee game, it looks like it was a blowout, but Virginia was hanging in there in the beginning. Like, there was a lot of mistakes on both sides of the ball. Obviously, it's week one, there's going to be mistakes, penalties, fumbles, dumb things. But I do want to keep watching this Tennessee because they can score, but I don't know how much they overall are going to put up when we're talking about comparing them to Georgia's, Bama's, Florida State's, Ohio State's. So we'll have to see. Joe Milton, I thought, looked just like I thought he did. He's got a cannon. He can chuck it deep, but he needs to kind of fix some footwork stuff where he throws some inaccurate passes. But, man, is he huge, can chuck the ball, and he can run too. He's an underrated runner. So Tennessee's going to be a fun offense. They're going to put up like 50 points a game. So keep an eye on that offense. I don't want to harp on the Florida-Utah game a lot. Sorry, Florida. It was a rough one to start off week one. I thought Utah looked really good, though. That's what I'm going to focus on is Utah without Cam Rising. Keep in mind, their quarterback, who I love Cam Rising. He's a great college quarterback. I'm not saying like Cam Rising going to be early draft pick in the draft, but like as a college quarterback, Cam Rising is like perfect. A tough dude. He's going to take the hits. He's going to stay in the pocket. He's going to make some incredible... He's going to stay in the pocket and take the hits. He's going to run, make some good plays, and just be smart. He's a 5th or 6th year. Cam Rising is an older quarterback, so he's a big part of that offense, and he didn't even play, and they still looked really good on offense there. So I think Utah's a team that gets slept on year after year, and it's going to be fun to see them in the Pac-12 because there's a lot of good quarterbacks and a lot of good teams in the Pac-12 from USC, Washington, Oregon, Colorado, Utah. There's a lot of good teams. They're going to be battling it out in the Pac-12. This is like the final hoorah for the Pac-12. It's going to be one hell of a final hoorah for the Pac-12 this year. You couldn't ask for much more from the final year in the Pac-12. So that's going to be fun to watch. And don't sleep on Utah. We do it every year. I don't know why, but they always just have really good talent. They always have a tough, really good, gritty defense, and they move the ball. So that's what I want to say on that. Next up, I told you I don't want to talk about quarterbacks as much, but one quarterback I did want to mention is J.J. McCarthy. Like I said, Michigan was on a team that handled business, did what they did, but from Michigan, there were a couple question marks we had coming this season. J.J. McCarthy he's an incredible athlete, incredible running the ball, but can he take that step as a thrower to put them in that national championship contention? Because he had he had shining moments of being able to uncork deep balls. You saw some beautiful throws against TCU in the playoffs last year, but just that consistency of throwing the ball wasn't quite there last year. And part of the reason why they were able to get knocked off by TCU, when the run game kind of slowed, they would struggle against some teams throughout last year. I thought McCarthy looked good. Hands up, I was not a McCarthy guy. I was not a big fan of JJ McCarthy. I thought he was an athlete and, maybe had a lot to be desired in the throwing the ball. But I will put my hands up and say I was impressed with the way he was throwing the ball. He looked to have more velocity. He was throwing some dots to Roman Wilson. So like I said, they had an easy game and they handled business. But McCarthy looked better throwing the ball. And if that's like not just a 1-game sample and he can do that throughout the year, I might have been wrong when I put Michigan at 5 and had Ohio State beating them in making the playoffs. I think Michigan, a lot of people had them as 1 or 2. I mean, the talent on their team is insane. And if McCarthy can take that step as a thrower, they're going to be really good, because the other question mark was Blake Corum's health. Not that it really mattered, because Donovan Edwards is a dog and he can be a number 1 running back. But Blake Corum looked like Blake Corum. Like Blake Corum, I had him as my number 3 running back in the last class, just behind Jahmyr Gibbs. I had him in like the same tier as Jahmyr Gibbs, right behind Bijan when I was initially doing running backs, because like he's hard to tackle. He's a shorter dude, center of gravity. He's hard to tackle, and he's like that dude where he'll slide his hips, miss a tackle, and he takes off. I mean, Blake Corum, reading the blocking schemes, knowing the holes to hit. He's really quick from, he sees a hole, he's quick getting through that hole. I mean, he was a true, legit Heisman. People forget he was a Heisman contender until his injury last year. And he looked really healthy. And man, it's only week 1, but I might have to say I was wrong on Michigan. All you guys who saw my college football preview and I had Michigan, I had him at 5, but I might still have to say I was wrong. The only bad thing I have to say about Michigan is like, Jim Harbaugh didn't die. He got suspended for doing something that he shouldn't have done. Why are we like free Jim Harbaugh running his formation? Like the dude suspended for a game. Like I was a little bit confused by that. Like they were making it seem like he died, and he just got suspended for 1 game. I don't know the whole free Jim Harbaugh thing, but nonetheless, Michigan's really good. Next up, I want to go to USC. Quick mention on Caleb Williams, because he's actually not going to be in my QB3 video. Dude's not a human. Like, the stuff he does, you can't even... You know how, like, normally you say, oh, like, this dude looks like he's playing... Like, Tavon Austin looks like he was playing Madden on the field. Like, you can't even do the stuff Caleb Williams is doing in Madden. Like, you can't do that stuff. He's running out of bounds, throwing the ball on ropes, making D linemen look silly. He's special. And he is definitely on track to be a back-to-back Heisman winner. But the dude I want to talk about from USC is Zachariah Branch. True freshman, might be special. When you watch him, I know he's already getting like Reggie Bush, Tavon Austin. Like he's getting high comps right now. I think like Percy Harvin, some people are comping. Dude moves different. We saw it in the first game against San Jose. He had the big return. He had the touchdown this week, and just whenever he touches the ball, he moves different, man. Especially to be a true freshman, he just looks quicker and faster than everyone else on the field, and he already has a good understanding of the game. You can see, like, on the kick return, he's not a dude that just had great blocking and just took it and ran. Like, he's slow, reading blocks, letting the blocks develop. Like, I think Branch is going to be special for USC, and this isn't just like he's a really good player. Like, he's a legit dude that's like, I'm already saying he's going to be a first-round pick in the NFL draft, because you just don't get dudes that move like he does with his speed and athleticism. That's all I want to say on that. Next up, Penn State finally has a quarterback. Drew Aller, I'm sorry, I didn't look up pronunciation. He looked good, man. Penn State's, the last couple of years, Penn State's been that they always have talent. I think Nicholas Singleton is probably the best back in college football. They have good quarterback play now. They got dudes on defense from Chop Robinson to Kalen King at corner. Like, they got dudes on both sides of the ball. And it's always been about the quarterback. And their quarterback, Aller, looked good. If Penn State can put this quarterback together, it might not just be a 2-horse race between Ohio State and Michigan. I think Penn State could join that conversation this year if they get that same quarterback play throughout the year. And based on the way Ohio State looked, Penn State could easily be above Ohio State when it comes to the end of the season. I don't want to overreact to week 1, but Penn State's on my watch now. I wasn't a huge fan. If you saw my predictions, I think I had them losing like 2. I think I had them losing like 3 games. They're always going to be a ranked team. It's not like they're going to be like unranked for me because they always have incredible talent. But it's just whether or not as a team they can really step up from being a ranked team to a top 10 team. And Aller has the potential to put them as a top 10 team. So they're a team that I want to keep. That's what week 1 is. Week 1 isn't a time to make statements. This team's going to make the playoffs. This team's going to do. It's a team to put teams on your watch list. This is like the watch list is being built out week 1. Penn State's on the watch list now. Utah's on the watch list now. These teams, you put them on your watch list. Colorado's on the watch list now. You're not saying they're going to be good, but it's like, okay, this is a team I maybe need to pay a little more attention to. And Penn State's up there for me. Okay, so I want to get to the 2 primetime games next, the Sunday night and Monday night. But one dude I want to mention who is going to be on my quarterback watch, but this dude needs to get more credit, is Cam Ward from Washington State, the quarterback. They played CSU, and they whooped them. CSU did not look very good, but Cam Ward is a dude. Like, he played incredible, I thought, for Washington State. And when we're talking about QB3s, he's going to be in my video because he's a dude that I definitely think is one of the most underrated guys in the nation right now. If you haven't, look up Cam Ward from Washington State because he's a dog. I'm going to move on from that because I'll talk about more in the QB video, but definitely keep on him. Next up, the primetime games. Florida State's here, baby. Florida State is here. They beat LSU. I was saying it, man. I've been saying it since the offseason. The talent that they have gotten from dudes on the roster to transfers. I was already on the bandwagon before Keon Coleman came over. Keon Coleman comes over from Michigan State. If you don't know much about Keon Coleman, incredible. Dude played college basketball at Michigan State. Like, he's that kind of athlete. And you probably saw it on the field against LSU, but their talent is incredible. And Jordan Travis, like I said, talk more about quarterbacks in the future, but Jordan Travis just reminds me of Jalen Hurts. Like, dude gets better and better every game, every year, and he just gets it done. Good runner. They were scaring me a little bit at the beginning. A couple drops from Johnny Wilson, but that offense is going to be so hard to stop. From Jaheim Bell, looked really good, being able to do everything for them. They have a good running back committee too. I mean, Trey Benson's like a dude who could be like a 2nd-round pick in the draft, but like they got multiple dudes there. Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson at receiver. They didn't even play Fenchel Cypress that much on defense. I don't know if he just got beat out or if he was like dealing with injuries or something, but like I was really high on Fenchel Cypress. He didn't even play that much, and their defense still looked really good. He was kind of clamping up Malik Neighbors on a couple go balls. He had a couple good defensive plays near the end of the half there, but they got dudes all over. Jared Verse, as advertised, they looked really good. I think Florida State's going to be a top 4 team. I think they're making the playoffs with the talent they have. On the other side of the ball, LSU, I thought you saw the flashes in talent that LSU had. I think we maybe had them a little too high. I was on the train of I don't think LSU's as good as maybe some people were saying. They still looked good. I still think they're definitely a top 10 team because they were throwing punches with Florida State. I mean, like they got dudes all over the balls. Not a huge Jaden Daniels fan. I think he's a good quarterback, but I wanted to see more throwing. He actually kind of impressed me, even though they lost. I thought he did look pretty good. We'll see what happens to their defense with Mason Smith because like Mekhi Wingo has the best get off in college football. My God, that dude gets off the ball. Like Mekhi Wingo balled and opened my eyes in the draft. Spoiler alert, he's one of my draft watch guys that I'm about to mention in a minute here, but you pair Mason Smith in with him, that D-line is going to be trouble for any team that has O-line struggles. They're going to, because Florida State has a pretty older, veteran-ish O-line, and they struggled a little bit at times against that LSU. So, like, when you start getting down the line, LSU against some other teams are going to struggle against that interior D-line of Mason Smith and Mekhi Wingo. So, the talent's there for LSU. I still think they're going to be a top 10 team. I think this was more of a Florida State being a really good team than LSU being a bad team. Next up, I didn't watch the full game on this. And keep in mind, I didn't watch every college football game. I try to watch as much as I can, but there's obviously some stuff I'm not going to talk about. I want to try and talk about the big games and the big teams. I didn't get to watch this full game, but, I mean, Duke is not just a basketball team anymore. Duke's got a football team. Riley Leonard's a really good quarterback. They got speed and talent all over that team at Duke. And they kind of just went out and punched Clemson in the mouth. And I thought Clemson was going to only lose 1 or 2 games this entire season. I was just like, their roster's good. Klubnik was kind of the big question, whether Klubnik can run this offense and be good. I thought they brought over Garrett Riley from TCU to be their OC, and I thought he was really going to help that offense because I loved the offense he ran at TCU. I was like, okay, he brings that to some of the talent they have at Clemson. That offense is going to cook. That offense didn't cook. They forgot to turn the stove on because, like I said, it's another one where we're going to have to, it's like the Ohio State-Indiana game where I think we're going to have to, in a couple weeks, we'll look back at this one and say either Clemson, yeah, we saw it week 1, or we're going to come back and say, hey, Duke is an underrated team because as much as I do think Clemson did not look like the Clemson of late that everyone wants them to, don't just discredit Duke and say that Clemson lost this game because I think if anything, Duke won this game. I thought Duke looked really good. And like I said, man, they ain't a basketball program anymore. And now I'm going to quickly say something that'll probably get everyone to click off this video. Am I the only one that likes the new Fox score bug with like their whole, like with the logos kind of tilted off? It brings college football vibes. If they do that with the NFL, I'm not into that. But on college side, it's simple. It brings the college vibes. I've seen so much hate for their new score bug, the Fox one on Twitter and stuff, but man, I love it, bro. I am in the minority here, but that Fox score bug, like I said, click off the video because you think I'm crazy. I love it, man. I think it's really cool. Now, to finish off this video, we're gonna go into draft watch and preview some of the games next week you need to be watching. Couple dudes I put on draft watch. Keep in mind these are kind of just dudes that I thought of a certain way going into the week, and now I think of them a different way as a draft prospect. So they're obviously all draft eligible people. They're all draft eligible players, and most of them are dudes like I knew, and they improved their draft stock, or at least showed me signs that make me think about them a different way. And some of them there's 2 dudes that I didn't even know before this week that I'm now watching for the draft. First up is Shedeur Sanders. Now, he looks really good. I mean, his accuracy and poise, like I said, I'll go ahead and mention him and JJ McCarthy are 2 quarterbacks I have on here. I'll mention more about them in my quarterbacks video. Thought Shedeur looked really poised, incredible accuracy, ability to read the field. My only question about him in draft stock that I have him in, I don't know if he's going to be a dude that comes out this year because there's rumors now. I just saw something online that he's making like $2.6 million or something or more in NIL. Like with the NIL he's getting, Deion Sanders' first year at CU, him being Deion's son, obviously, and that program is like young. Like Travis Hunter's only a true sophomore. He can't come out. Dylan Edwards is a true freshman. Some of those dudes are a lot of really young guys. So I'm wondering if Shedeur stays another year with Travis and some of these other dudes. And this is kind of like, even if he could be a first round pick this year, with NIL, I wouldn't be surprised if Shedeur Sanders is one of those dudes that he could be a first round pick, but he might just come back like Jared Verse and Olu Fashanu. I would be shocked if Shedeur actually left. Even if he has can be a first round pick, I'd be surprised if he left college. JJ McCarthy, I talked about him earlier. Blake Corum, another dude who I loved in last year's draft. Injury, I was curious, is he going to come back from the injury? What's he going to look like? I'm ready to have him back up in that RB1 conversation for this draft class because he looks really good. It's a really deep running back class that I'm not ready to put a RB1 yet, but Blake Corum is definitely right back up in that conversation. He looked healthy. He looked great. Similar situation with Travion Henderson. He didn't have much production this week, but I thought he looked more like, in the small sample that we got from him against Indiana, he looked more like his freshman self than his sophomore. Because as a true freshman, I mean, this dude was a first round talent. Like with what we saw, his explosiveness, athleticism, and just how he played as a true freshman at Ohio State was like first round tape. Last year, he battled injuries, didn't quite look like himself even when he played last year. I thought he looked more like that true freshman Travion this year or this week. And I think he definitely, he has the most potential in this running back class to be like if you're to tell me one running back is going to be drafted in the first round, who is it? It would be Travion Henderson for me. Right now, is he there? No. Can he get there? I think he has the best chance of any running back. So him. Next up, I got Jalen McMillan from Washington. I loved Rome Odunze. I believe that's how you pronounce it, Odunze. I love him. I've known about him. He's good. I heard Jalen McMillan before, but I didn't really put much serious stock into his name before. But he made sure I know his name now because he balled. Like I said, it was kind of one of those games against Boise where they handle business. A lot of people actually, including myself, I thought Boise was actually a solid team, but they rolled over Boise. And Jalen McMillan was balling it. Dude, I definitely need to keep my eyes on because he's got legit speed. He's got good ball tracking on those deep balls from Penix. Penix isn't a dude I talked about either. Like I said, I think Washington just kind of handled their business, but I mean, the throws Penix was making, he is like NFL ready. It's really just injury questions with him, but I'll talk about him in my quarterback video. I'm sorry I keep saying that, but watch that quarterback video. Jalen McMillan's a dog, though. My last two are a pair of Indiana dudes who you need to keep your eye on, and I didn't even know before them. First one is Aaron Casey, their linebacker. He made a few plays in this game where I was like, that's a legit play. Like he made a couple third or fourth and short where he just burst through the line, got a TFL, huge like game-changing tackles from the linebacker position that Aaron Casey made that really made me, hey, this dude's really athletic too. I'm watching Aaron Casey. I see you in Andre Carter on that same D-line, not the Army Andre Carter that's on the Ravens. Andre Carter from Indiana, he balled all game. Like Ohio State has a legit offensive line, and he looked really good against that offensive line. So Andre Carter and Aaron Casey, when I was talking about Indiana, I said, are we going to look back and say, did Ohio State struggle, or is this Indiana defense just good? Like, those two dudes are just good defensive players on Indiana. It's not like Ohio State played bad and those dudes shine. Like, they were playing legit ball. And dudes we need to keep our eye out on from Indiana because they are two really good players. That's it for my draft watch. Now, just go over a quick preview of next week's games that you guys need to keep your eye on. And then we'll wrap up this episode of the podcast. By the way, it's called the Money Down Podcast. I haven't done a podcast since December 30th, 2021. So I'm bringing it back. I might do more podcasts. We'll kind of see how they do. I'm still going to keep up the videos though. So if you want to see the podcast, links in the description. It's called the Money Down Podcast. Go over there. College Football Weekly Roundup. Now, next week, the big game is Texas-Bama. I didn't really talk about Texas. Quinn Ewers had some struggles that I'm curious to see if it was kind of week one struggles or if it is Quinn Ewers struggles. And there's no better defense than to expose those struggles than Bama. So Quinn Ewers needs to get his stuff together before this next game because Bama is going to be coming to town. Bama handled business last week. I thought Milroe looked solid for Bama. It's at Bama, so Bama's not really coming to town. Texas is technically coming to town to Bama. I got Bama in this one, though. I think Bama's going to look really good, even with all the talent Texas has. That's the game of the week, obviously, that you got to be watching. And then some other games you need to keep your eye out on. Nebraska at Colorado. Nebraska lost to Minnesota in the first game of the Matt Rule era. They got some talent. Colorado shocked the world with Deion Sanders at TCU. Can Colorado do it again? I think this is going to be an interesting game of Rule and Deion, probably the two biggest head coach hires this offseason going head-to-head. Old rivalry coming back for Nebraska-Colorado. We'll see how that one is. If you don't know a lot of draft stuff or you don't watch a lot of football, this might not sound good to you, but Ole Miss versus Tulane is going to be a really good game. Tulane I didn't talk about either, but Michael Pratt looked really good. He's a really good quarterback. Tulane is, if you don't know much about Tulane, they are a ranked team. They beat USC in a bowl game last year where Caleb Williams balled. They put up points. Tajay Spears coming out of Tulane. He looked really good for the Titans, but Tulane still has talent. Ole Miss, obviously, usually always has really good talent. They're a ranked team. That's going to be a really good ranked matchup. I think that's going to be a really good game. Ole Miss versus Tulane. A lot of points to potentially be scored in that one. And then Texas A&M and Miami just has a lot of talent. Texas A&M is ranked. They looked really good this first weekend. And Miami also looked really good, and they have talent all over the board from Cameron Kitchens to Leonard Taylor. His name almost blanked. To Leonard Taylor. They got dudes all over that defense. there's a lot of talent in Texas A&M, Miami. Another game I want to keep my eyes on. Anyways, that is going to be it for this week. Like I said, check out the podcast on Spotify and Apple if you want to. I'm going to try and do this every week. I got my QB3 video coming out, and a little spoiler video I'm working on too is the receiver duos in the NFL or in college football, because there's a lot of really good receiver duos in college football, and I'm going to be ranking them and see who has the best receiver duo in college football. That'll be coming out later this week, probably next week, that one. Then QB3 will be this week. Anyways, I'll see you guys for the next one. Thank you for listening or watching wherever you're at.